Hi, I'm Mary Balfour, the MD of Drawing Down the Moon, the very first personal dating agency founded in 1984. Well, how are you doing? And welcome to the recording of the very first of my smart dating online seminars for women. This is where I'm sharing with you many of our insider secrets, field tested strategies about how to find and captivate the heart of that special guy. Without more ado, let me introduce my two co-panelists. First of all, Pier Reid. Here's her picture. Pier is more or less the nerve centre of the agency, making everything in it happen. Amongst many other things, she gets feedback from our members, so she has the insider story, and she really does know what works. Then we have Kate Kennedy. Here's her picture. Kate has been working with me for over 20 years as my senior consultant and matchmaker. Kate is the unsung heroine behind many happy relationships. You may even know some of them, but not know how they were introduced to each other. Okay then, let's dive straight in and listen to the recording of the online seminar about the 10 most common mistakes that women make on first dates. And I can guarantee that you're making 80% of them. Here goes. I hope you're ready to take Valentine's Day by storm. I want you to finish up tonight with a personal action plan all worked out, what you're going to do tomorrow to change your situation and what you're going to do in the next week or so. But right now, before we start, let's see how each and every one of you is doing with your Find That Man action plan. Here's the poll. And so far, 61% of you have said you haven't met the right man yet. 70% of you saying you don't meet available, interesting guys. 19% so far are saying men are scared of me. 33% have said not prepared to lower your standards. 36% are nervous of being rejected or hurt. That's exactly what I would have expected. And all these are things that are zappable. Okay? So let's see what you're doing to change this situation. Are you employing my domino dating strategy? How many dates have you been out on in the last 6 months? 32% have said between 1 and 3, 18% between 4 and 6, 14% 7 or more. Those of you who have been on dates, I want to know how many of you have been on a second or third date with the same person. Oh, that's good. That's good. It means you're persisting, you're trying them out, you're practicing with the nerds in some cases. Now, what I want to do in order to get this session buzzing a bit is to go through 10 biggest mistakes that women make on dates. I think that the biggest mistake is expecting to be able to judge chemistry. They tend to think that if there's no chemistry on a first date, that is it. The problem is the first dates are a bit of a test and they're very highly pressured, and it's difficult for people to be really relaxed if there's pressure going on in the background. There's all sorts of hidden agendas, will you be judged? Will you be handsome? And if you're not relaxed, you won't be able to flirt. Not flirt genuinely from the heart. And if you're not flirting, I can promise you the guy won't flirt back and you won't fancy him. Guaranteed. There's been a lot of interesting research done on this on the West Coast in America. People have been friends for months and have both decided the other person isn't relationship material, but they become just friends. 3 or 4 months down the line, you're doing something crazy together. I don't know, hang gliding, paragliding, wine tasting, anything that's totally different where you can just let that shield down and have a laugh. That's when you're most likely to fall in love. What I want you to do is to think of first dates as a way to meet lots of men but put in the Mr. Maybe category. I don't want you to aim at going on a date just thinking, will he be the one or not? Because I'll tell you something, all of you on your way to work this morning will have probably passed half a dozen guys that you could spend the rest of your life with. But to get you both in flirt mode on a date at the same time is what we've got to get you doing. Thing. You've got to let go of judging on this first date. Because the next mistake that women make, and guys, is having a mental date shopping list. Is he tall enough? Has he got hair? Is he in a good job? Has he got bad teeth? If you have a date shopping list, women, I want you to tear it up, put it in the shredder, please, because it doesn't work that way. The one thing we can all guarantee, and Pier and Kate, I want you to come in on this one. When we've had a happy outcome to one of our matches, and we've had tens of thousands of happy outcomes, it's usually with somebody who's completely different to the expectations of the two people we were matching up. Kate, tell me what your experience has been on that.
Yes, I mean, I agree. People often do fall in love with someone who defies all their preconceptions, or at least some of them. So yeah, I think nobody really, I mean, that shopping list is definitely for the shredder because nobody really knows. I mean, I think people need, as you say, to have a sort of, to feel an equality, maybe intellectually, and to feel they've got common ground and, you know, that they're both sort of have a similar value system. But beyond that, there are so many things that people feel strongly about, like height of a partner, earning capacity, all of that throws people because they realise that they have a much broader, you know, they have a much, they're attracted to more people. Their map of love or their template of love is much bigger than they imagine.
And Pier, I mean, Pier has, that was Kate, by the way, who's been working with Drawing Down the Moon for the last 20 years and probably has a better insight than anybody of what works and also what doesn't work. Now, Pier has been working here for about 7 years. 7 years, Pier?
Exactly, 7 years last Wednesday.
Oh, wow. And Pier's on a phone because something's gone wrong with her computer. But Pier, if you could sort of speak as clearly as you can, because it sounds a bit fuddly on my machine here. I mean, you've watched it all happen. And not happen too, because it's also about rejection. You know, you've got to take a few risks here. But the ones that have worked out, have they been the ones that you could have predicted or the individuals concerned would have predicted?
I think when we're doing the matching as a team, as we do, you know, we meet everybody in person. So you get a good feel for somebody as you can at that initial meeting with them. But then also, of course, we're talking to our members on a regular basis, so you get to know them more and more. And I think the team can sometimes have a very good idea of who they think will get on. We hope that when we do a match for everybody that they're going to get on when they do meet. But of course, you know, people that you can think would be the perfect match can go on a date and not necessarily have that chemistry there. And then some people who you think may possibly get on are the ones that end up together. So, you know, you can never judge it completely. But I do think we're all guilty at some stage in our life of having a shopping list. I know I have. As a woman who's just under 5'2", I myself always wanted to go out with very tall men. But my last long-term relationship happened to be with somebody who was the complete opposite to my ideal man. And, you know, we had a very happy 5-year relationship with him.
Thank you, Pier. I mean, that's very interesting because, I mean, the heightism thing is crazy here. The only goal of a first and a second date is to separate the maybes from the no-hopers. And I want you to be really honest with them. You're not going to lead them on and make them think you're falling in love with them because you're going to tell them that you are having a great time and meeting lots of other guys, but you really like them. You know, that's when surprising things happen.
We have seen in the past when, you know, you're widening your circle of friends and, you know, it could be the guy you've met a couple of times who you like as a friend. Yes. It could be his cousin or one of his friends who actually turns out to be your Mr. Perfect. So those friendships are worth maintaining.
That's right. So, I mean, yes, you can meet people through people because good friends were the most likely ones to introduce you to your future partner. Now, some very small practical things here. Talking too much on the phone before meeting up can be a major problem. People can talk themselves out of a date. This happens because you use up all your very necessary small talk on the phone before you meet and you haven't got anything left for the date. And also people can get too close before they've actually met, which is a major killer of any potential chemistry. So we say never talk for more than 5 minutes on a first date. Do stick to that. And if people start questioning you about your ideas and who you are and really interviewing you on the phone, just make a light-hearted close to the phone call and arrange where you're going to meet. And that should be it.
Can I just add to that? Because, I mean, Kate will back me up on this as well. The reality is that we've experienced when people have had long conversations, and the fact is that some people are just better on the phone than others. and we'll have made a match, and we'll get the phone call saying we spoke on the phone, and I just don't think we're right for each other. And the staff will encourage them to still go and meet each other, and then of course, lo and behold, they have done, and they've got on like a house on fire. So yes, keep phone calls short, as Mary's saying.
Now, the main thing I feel to making sure that you're not going to be nervous on that first date, you're not going to kill the chances of feeling relaxed and flirtatious. The main thing is to keep the date really short, because that minimizes the level of expectation that's going to be hanging around you and causing stress. And if you keep it really short in a public place that you feel comfortable with, it's going to be much easier to be relaxed and to be your genuine self and to be flirtatious in a natural way. Okay, one other thing about nervousness, it really helps to own up if you're nervous, because it diffuses the tension, because your date will be nervous and they'll say, oh, I was nervous too, and you'll both have a laugh and relax. The next thing that both men and women, but particularly women, are prone to do that absolutely zaps their chances on a first date is talking about previous relationships. And it's very easy and natural to do this, and you've really got to watch yourself, because you're on a date, so your date will ask you, and what about you, why are you single, and how did you come to be on the dating site, or to let your friend know you wanted to meet people. And of course you say, oh, well, my previous relationship broke up, or I was divorced, or whatever. That actually starts it all going wrong, because they will then talk about their previous relationships, and it becomes a therapy session, and you know far too much intimate stuff about your date far too soon. So if the other person starts talking about their ex relationships, just lean over, touch them on the arm and say, hey, it's definitely not recommended we do this. And then they'll say, why? And you can say, well, Mary Balfour says so. So you can use me as the excuse for moving on to something much less sensitive. Now, another thing that people do, and particularly women, when they're nervous and they're worried the date might not live up to their expectations, is giving out the wrong body language signals. Now, we all do this anyway. So be very aware how you are and what signals you're giving out, because I don't know, it's about 70 or 80% of who you are is judged by your body language. And this includes your tone of voice, your eye contact, the way you're sitting. And, you want to be really relaxed and watch the body language, because you can also be giving out some very positive stuff. Maintain eye contact just that millisecond longer, and say their name often. Make sure you are facing the person, and little touches like, touching your own hair and caressing the wine glass, all that gives out really positive stuff. Now, you don't want to go over the top on this, especially if you're not sure whether you want to see them again. But just be aware of that. And most important of all, be aware of his body language, because he might be giving out defensive stuff like arm folding, pointing away from you, which might be telling you something. Or if he's resting his head on his hand, it could be because you can't stop talking and he's bored stiff. There's a great book on this, by the way, by Alan and Barbara Pease about body language, and it's all in there, and you can really read his thoughts if you just dip in and out of this book. The other thing that people do, particularly women, and they often do it obliquely, is they're asking the guy about the type of relationship they may be looking for on a first date. That's bonkers. Just think about this first date as being the kind of conversation you'd have at a dinner party and you're sitting next to somebody. Don't go there. Don't ask about what they're looking for. Don't talk about previous relationships. Just keep it to mainly chatty small talk, honestly. Because if you feel good about each other, you will see one another again. And another thing that women do, and sometimes guys, is talking about wanting babies. They think that they shouldn't lead a guy on if he's not the kind of guy who wants babies and a family. Most men who do go on to have babies with women and families that they're in a loving relationship with on every front don't know it. In fact, this happens with everything on a date. Don't go into interview mode on a date. And I think probably the final thing is women are very judgmental about guys on dates. And in many ways, it's much harder for a guy on a date than it is for a woman, because they're often expected to take the lead, impress you. And the guys try too hard, and often, as part of this process, they'll talk more than you do. In fact, they can talk endlessly about themselves. And we women, we collude with this quite often by giving out body language signals which encourage them. We sort of look all interested and we say things like, how interesting. And somehow we even get our pupils to dilate. There's been research on this, because we're sort of pre-programmed in a way to look interested, even when we're modern women and into equality. So be very aware of this. And it does help if you can create a relaxed atmosphere and not look angry if people talk too much. Just lean over, touch them on the arm gently and say, hey, I want to say something about that. Can I come in here? And I've actually done a video about this on my Dating Success video channel on YouTube. Do take a look at this. A lot of problems which women encounter on dates I've talked about and made videos on, and particularly the one about guys talking too much.
What I would add to that is just being aware of very high expectations, because I think it's very difficult when you're wanting to meet the right partner and he's wanting to meet somebody too, not to sort of invest quite a lot into, I really hope this is the one and I really want this to be the one, I really need this to work. And maybe you've had a nice phone call and your expectations are very high, but it's putting the pressure on yourself and it. I mean, I always use the phrase a pre-date, that it's difficulty is that there's something slightly contrived and artificial when you meet online. Yes. Or through an agency. And you sometimes refer back to, a date that you've had in life that's happened quite organically, where one of you's asked the other one out. And there's already a bit of a free start, there's already a context. Whereas this way of meeting people that so many people are doing online stuff now, it's quite cold. It's not the same as meeting somebody naturally. So you have to sort of accommodate that. Yeah. And give yourself permission, to take more time and to get to know somebody if that's possible, rather than that not knowing is quite uncomfortable, I think. That not knowing whether someone's quite right. I think we like it as human beings, we like it to be a clean and a clear yes or a no. And so often it's in a grayer area. And you can't be you're not sure. I mean, I think sometimes it's obviously unobvious, your heart sinks at the thought of meeting somebody again, then that would be a waste of time. But if it's a grayer area, then it's definitely worth, keep meeting.
The women who we have known who have gone into happy relationships are the ones who've said, look, I'll meet anyone who's halfway right. In any situation, providing you've got a certain overlap with values and outlook and experience and stuff, and providing you can laugh at more or less the same jokes, honestly, you could well end up with that person in a very happy, loving relationship. I always say, when you go to Sainsbury's, or maybe your Waitrose people, I don't know, when you go to Sainsbury's, look around you at the couples with the shopping trolleys. I mean, you probably wouldn't have put half of them together, but in fact, they've worked out, and you can see by their body language. And it's interesting, actually, that's the only predictive stuff you can really do, is look at how two people are reacting to each other when they're together. That would tell you whether it's likely to last or not, and there's been quite a bit of research on that. But it's very difficult to be predictive on paper about stuff. We know people because we've met them and we've interacted with them, and that gives us a very privileged view of what's likely to be working out. Kate, as I mentioned earlier, also does date coaching and is available for this. If you contact the Drawing Down the Moon office, go online and look up drawingdownthemoon.co.uk and you will find our number. And we are open every day up till 11 p.m. And my goodness, we've got a lot of people here. And I had only expected about 5 or 10. And at the moment, we've got 41 people online. So that's very impressive. And thank you for staying with us.
Good luck and keep going. The more people you meet, the better. It is a numbers game.
Thank you.